So, one of the themes we've been exploring at Marketbridge this year is whether creativity is really entering a new era. So, at the same time, Cannes is taking place and it's celebrating creativity, storytelling, and brand, we know that CMOs are under more pressure than ever to show revenue and impact. So, on top of that, we've also got how AI is changing everything. So, I wanted to sit down with two people that I get the pleasure to work alongside every day who have over 55 years combined experience in the creative industry to just have a chat about what's going on, what worries them, and what excites them, and what this actually means for creative teams and agencies moving forward. So, Rinty, I'll start with you. You have been in the industry a long time. Does this moment genuinely feel different, or is this just another industry cycle?
I think it's the same but different, if that makes sense. So, I mean, let's go back like, a few decades. There's been incremental change at certain key milestones that I've witnessed. And you just had to remain agile and just keep learning. And so for me at this point, yes, you can feel that difference, of course, but actually the agility that creators have now and have always had, I believe, and the ones that are still in the business this far along actually can kind of turn themselves to those different tools, to those different mindsets, to those different processes, with positivity actually, and just embrace it and just keep going. So actually, it feels different, but it's still the same, if that makes sense.
So, Dan, what do you think from a creative team perspective? You work really hand in hand with everyone across our agency day in, day out. So, what are they under pressure to do now, I guess, that they weren't under pressure to do before?
Yeah, I think keeping up with the pace, stuff is moving so fast, and I think for me that's probably the thing that I've really noticed. So that shift to change, stuff has changed for so long every year, but I think now that pace just seems to have accelerated, and I think everyone just, I think keeping open to it and sort of curious about what's going on. I think that's so important. So we don't miss developments that are really important, and the whole team, I guess, feel supported in that. I think from a leadership point of view, being really close to the team is so important there to make sure that we're sort of learning with them and going on that journey and keeping up with that pace.
If you go back again through the decades, juniors and sort of younger designers and creators that were coming through, they were literally learning from scratch when they started their first
Mm.
job. They are now coming into the business knowing far more, and they know lots of tools, lots of software even that, actually we can learn from. So that's
Yeah.
absolutely where Dan's saying, I think leaders like us have to make sure we're open-minded in the same way that our juniors and younger creators are open-minded. It's working together in that way.
God, that reverse mentorship
Yeah.
that we champion so
Mm.
much at Marketbridge really coming through there, I think, in terms of having a really open mind. Dan, have you got any examples of what that actually looks like day to day in practice?
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, staying really close to the team. So when there are projects using, I guess, the experts in those different areas and learning from them, making sure that when there are these um, advances in the tools and someone has, approached a challenge and learned from it, it's then how do we share that? How do we make sure that those skills don't just stay with that one person, that we're spreading it out around the team? So it might be that we do a quick half-hour session where we just run through it with the team. We might, share something on our channels where people can then go in and watch it at their own sort of time. So yeah, just making sure that, I guess, that learning doesn't just stay in one area, it keeps spreading throughout the team, and then we can then start using that in practice when we actually get opportunities in jobs to bring that in as well.
It's that creative ripple effect.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah, that agile training is so important because I think, one of you said, the pace is different now.
yeah.
We have to be agile, we have to be responsive to our client and the market needs. So making sure we stay up with that training and innovation is never more important. I guess to flip the conversation to the external lens and thinking about kind of creativity versus the commercial pressure. Do you think that creativity has become a bit disconnected from kind of the commercial reality? What's your take on that part of the conversation?
Do you know what? I think without alienating certain creative entities, I think the B2B world, we've always had to be commercially, I guess, on what the budgets are, what the timing is. Our budgets are very different. The way the B2B enterprise works is very different. And so I actually say from a personal point of view, in the time and the duration I've been within the B2B world, the commercial reality absolutely is why I'm still here to a certain degree. And we're making sure that we're training that down. And actually our teams having that understanding actually makes them make better, smarter decisions at the time as well.
I think really now more than ever, that's so important to whatever job someone's working, whatever
Yeah.
task, they're just having that wider view, that context of where it sits, I think will deliver the best work. And if someone understands right from the start, these are the parameters we're working to, this is what we need to be aware of, I think their thinking from that very first stage can be guided by that, and you will then get the most appropriate work for that task, and it will be more efficient to get done, it will be more smooth to be delivered. So I think that throughout the team is massively important.
And I think back in the day, your creative leaders didn't really or weren't really that transparent about those commercial realities when you were a younger
Yeah.
designer. I certainly never had sight of any of that. You were literally given the work and they oversaw your work, and they didn't really share that information. And I think the difference now is knowing that there's nothing wrong with sharing that information with the business, because we're all on that same pathway to that goal. We all want to make sure we're succeeding. So I think that's changed massively.
And do you think that's linked to clients buying creative differently today?
Yeah, I think that actually they can see that our knowledge is much more vast in terms of their world. So when we're on those calls with our clients, understanding and having empathy with their world, creators understanding and being on that journey with them. And also they want to be on that with you. They want to have fun, and they want to have, obviously as an agency, we're there for the value and for that intelligence and that insight to help them. But they still want to have that fun bit and make them feel like that, part of them was in that campaign as well. And that goes towards that relationship feeling really, really united and sound, I think.
And with all that knowledge, with all of that broader context, I guess there has been a bit of a sense across the industry where we've talked about creative maybe becoming a bit safer over the last couple of years. So, Dan, I'll start with you. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's become safer. I think for me, there's just more of it. There's so many more opportunities now to create content, and opportunities for content to be created in lots of areas. It's then even more important that that creative work really stands out. It really has impact. It really delivers in the areas it needs to do. It needs to speak to the audience that it's communicating whatever the message is to. So I think it's almost creating those little wow moments amongst that, really. So whatever creative is being created at that point it's really standing out and is being that
Yeah, I think
impact
there's
piece.
absolutely. I think there's a difference as well between what is safe and what is right.
Yeah.
Because, something actually that's very simple and effective,
Yeah.
that is engaging our clients' audiences, that's what this is all about, actually. You can be as creative as you want to be, but if they don't get it, then it's obviously going to fail. So it's that fine balance between, yes, boldly going, where no creative's gone before, we all love that. But at the same time, making sure that it's smart and making sure, and that's where that strategic value, making sure that insight is born with the brief, we're answering all the things they need. And that's what wraps into the creative to make it work the right way.
Now, AI has been a big part of our strategy at Marketbridge for some time. We've been early adopters of AI within our business, and particularly within our creative department. So I guess I'm going to, rather than talk about the benefits of AI, because I think we can, but I guess to start the conversation, Dan, what kind of worries you most about how AI is changing creative work across the industry?
I think for me, like you say, there's so many positives in how we can use it. I think for me, it's probably how it's just changing the conversation and almost taking the focus away from the idea or the creative. And there's so much noise around what it will do, how it will affect things. But actually, that's that detraction from
What it should do.
how important the ideas are, how the use of those tools can really add to people's workflows. It can make life easier. So there's so many good things. I think it's that I think I hope that will continue to evolve and continue to change a bit,
Yeah.
and more will come from it, really.
Yeah, I think, what worries me, I think it's just, I hope that we remain, we can still debate those ideas together. It was something that Dan and I were talking about actually a few days ago about, what do we see happening with our team in 5 years' time? We're always thinking about those next steps and making sure we're planning for the future, because it's their future as much as
Yeah.
it's a business future. what we don't know is what's around the corner, but I know that we don't want to see a dystopian world where there's data talking to data. That we don't want that. But I think actually creativity will win through, and AI helps us do that. Actually, AI, well, the creative tool helps us create fantastical things that have been in our brains for years, and we can actually see those come to life. Also, I would say that it's making sure that that compliance and regulation is front of mind as well. So I think, is there a worry? Only with the people that don't use it the right way. And that's where, we would always make sure we're training our teams to use it the right way, respectfully,
Yeah.
from a compliance point of view, but also just making sure that we're still being original in our creation. I think that's where, creatively original.
So we talked a little bit there, you kind of leaned into the human judgment side of things. What does that look like?
I think for me, I always think about prompting using AI as you have to take that role as being a director. You have to direct what you're wanting to achieve. You can't rely on the first outputs. You can't rely on vague prompts. It has to be that you've got something you want to create and you prompt to get that. So taking that, it's just a different headspace, different viewpoint to treat it as if you're a director. And I think that helps massively.
Yeah, well, it's when you're scamping. When you're
Yeah.
scamping, you're drawing stuff out, and sometimes your first 10 scamps may not work, and they may be rubbish. That's the same thing to a degree when you're using AI. You're getting that idea out from it, or you're kind of getting it to a place where it's going to be workable, but you're working with it. The key is not to take it verbatim of what it gives you, because it isn't always right. So, but it can get you there quicker.
Yeah.
So that's the key, I think, is, you're still using your creative skills, your artistic license, and working in that kind of debatable way, and just always challenging yourself. I think that's the key as well. Challenge it as much as you can.
Yeah.
And I guess we work, we're talking a lot about as an agency, as a creative team internally, but we obviously work in collaboration across a lot of our clients with their brand teams as well. So when we're looking forward, we're thinking about what happens next, a challenge perhaps. What do you think is going to define kind of the best creative teams, whether they be in-house, whether they be agency side, over the next 5 years? Rintje, I know you're
Yeah,
massively passionate about
I
this
am.
one.
I think the thing that will define the agencies moving forward is the united communication between those teams and outside of the creative team as well. So I'm talking, strategic teams, client services teams, your operation teams. That's what's going to define that agency of the future. You can no longer silo yourself into one specific discipline. As creatives, of course, that's what we love, of course. But we have to make sure that we are now understanding and working with those other teams to make sure that we're all making the right decisions together. I think so. More informed, united decision making together.
Which totally ties into our kind of big system thinking, kind of, ethos and strategy we obviously champion at Marketbridge. So Dan, with that in mind then, what I guess would your be advice for younger creatives in the industry? That, there's obviously a lot of change, there's a lot of noise around AI, but based on what Rintje's just said, like, what would your advice to them be?
I think having that curiosity, I think to approach all the opportunities there are with a really positive viewpoint, that what can I learn from this? What can I take from this? How can I learn from others around me? And I think as we started the conversation, it goes up and down. There's, you learn from everyone throughout the team. So I think approaching that in the positive viewpoint of getting the most out of all the tools that are there, all the people's experience that are there, and not worrying about, I suppose, specific areas, but being open to learning in lots of different areas as well, to, like you're saying, keep agile, almost that hybrid approach to how you can sort of use your skills in the right way to add to the team, really.
Yeah, I think to any young generation coming through, it's keeping that open mind. Yes, you have the skills, software, probably no more than your creative leaders, I would imagine, because of the way that you can self-teach and the way you're. We were talking about this, that they absorb tech very early on compared to how we did back when we were younger. But I think it's now the soft skills. It's now being open-minded to navigating situations, accepting that feedback for people that have and do understand the wider ask. That open-mindedness, I think, is really crucial. Yeah.
So to bring it back, I guess, to where we started, we know that over the coming weeks, the conversations around cans are going to be really championing creativity. It's a great moment in our industry. It always creates a lot of noise around, obviously the subject you both feel extremely passionate about. But I guess to think about the conversations and the way that creative is framed around this time of year and this particular event, what's your hope of what we'll be talking about in maybe 5 years that we're not talking about today?
Wow, that's a
That's a big question.
big
Yes.
question. Do you know what? Again, I think I did it earlier where I just hope that we remain true to, that creative human element, that data doesn't overtake that the algorithm doesn't overtake that, the AI doesn't overtake that. Otherwise, what's the point of us being here? I think, we reflect human behavior in what we create. We also are talking to humans in what we are marketing for. So I think I just want to see more of that creative thinking that without that sort of hindrance of it having to behave a certain way, I think.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think following on from that, I hope the craft is still something that's there. 5 years' time we don't know, but the focus,
We'll be imagining it.
yeah, now is all about what's the technology, the tools that can make us work differently. I think I don't want the craft to be lost in that, and the art of having a simple but brilliant idea, or the art of having that emotive hook that someone really resonates with someone. I think that I really hope is key and still there in the future.
Without a doubt, I think the simple but brilliant idea is a lovely kind of sentiment to end on. I think it is those sparks that are going to help clients we work with, brands out there, really kind of differentiate. And as we've said, it needs to be connected into that bigger conversation, that business vision, to make sure that we're driving impact. So I have to say, it makes me feel very positive speaking to you both. And I know our creative team at Marketbridge is in extremely safe hands under your guidance. So thank you for sharing your
Pleasure.
reflections, and we look forward to more conversations around cans as it unfolds.
Brilliant. Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you.